And we're live. Welcome everybody to Fake Whale. This week's guest is Jake Freed. Welcome.
Hey Jesse, thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you. We actually haven't really spoken besides one DM quickly yesterday saying looking forward to this. So this one's really cool. I like to get to know an artist through these kind of conversations. So I'm looking forward to this. So I'm going to jump right in. You started out as a painter, is that right? And then
Yeah.
through being a painter, and basically what I'm going to get to right away is that the process seems like that was the most interesting thing to you, and that is what really sparked what's going on with your work today. Your work is very animated, but it's not even that you made work and then wanted to animate it, for the sake of animating it. It seems to me, from like the little bit I've known and then looking at your work, that what you actually liked was what it looked like through the stages of creation, and like, because that's the slow change. And then after I read that and I went and looked at your work, I was like, I see that big time, like that's really interesting and unique. So maybe you can tell me about that, and maybe to kick it off, just like the very brief, like what got you into painting, that boring question. But what's more interesting to me is like why process became more interesting to you than painting in itself, because it is to me too. So let's start there.
Great question, and kind of like the focus of how to talk about my work is like, what am I doing? I think is really important, and that's where all the interest lies. I've always known I was an artist. It kind of was just like who I was. So when people ask like, how did you decide to paint or be an artist? Just always been making work. Like it just feels like a natural extension of like how it's like talking. Right? It always felt more natural than talking. Everybody talks, so everyone knows what it feels like to communicate to other people or like express yourself. And like I always knew from a young age, like, wow, this feels like I'm in touch with something that's more real than, the facade we put on as people and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
So painting, right, is like the dominant, like genius form of like art. For me, it was like I was always into 2D more than 3D for whatever reason. This always comes up. I think you can relate as a black and white guy yourself. Like I'm colorblind.
Oh,
I've just
cool.
always
Me
been
too.
attracted
I'm
to
running
like.
across so many people lately that are colorblind.
A lot of great artists are, but like you can see one of my prints behind me. Like I'm just attracted to like really graphic, bold image making, and like so. And I just started painting, and I had some success as a young artist, like a lot of positive feedback, and I got to go to good schools, and I was like, I'm going to be a painter. What I did discover, and this is again like a really deep kind of conversation, but that just making one image like doesn't do it for me. Like as an artist, after a while, just sort of felt like I can do any, like just bouncing around. Like I can paint this, I can paint that, I can draw that well. And we see this with young artists, like in any style. But I always had like sort of like the sketchbooks and like personal work that was always just like, it was basically me just sort of like filling up the page until it's full and then like throwing it away. And it's like, what, when I'm really doing it for myself, it's like, it's not about presenting some idea to people or anything. It's like, wow, I do love going back to the original thing, like kind of getting lost in the paper and the process and where it leads my mind. And that it's, for me, I feel like I'm in my flow state, or I'm in touch with myself. So yeah, after like I made paintings to finish them, but like when I got out of school and then I was like, I'm a professional artist now, like I can support myself with side jobs. Like, what am I doing? I started painting and just like kept reworking them, and kind of had that, I think, like, it's like kind of a classic artist like mania. It's like, I'm gonna keep changing this shit like over and over again. Like, where am I going? Like, what am I doing? And yeah, like and then I started photographing them like over time. And then it was like, oh, and this is all with like, trending into like online video and digital space, and me like opening up to being a moving image artist. Because back to your original question, when I tell people I'm an animator, that's not a good description of what I'm doing, even though it is
not at
animation.
All.
So I started to think of them as moving paintings, which now in like the NFT space, like everyone gets that. It's like, oh, it's like a painting on the wall, but it moves like as a loop. Or but that's what I've been like telling people for like 15 years now. Is like, it's my paintings, but it's how they like change over time, and you treat them like a painting. They're like objects of contemplation. They're not like strict narrative films.
Yeah.
And they're not music videos, but I make the sound design. But so like they're like paintings of the future or something.
I didn't even know there was sound design, to be honest.
Yeah,
like most of the time when I look at stuff, I usually have the sound off because I don't particularly like want to be
100%. Yeah.
distracted. But this isn't even animation, really. There needs to be a different word because animation alludes to like taking something and making it move, but it's like you're not doing that. You're documenting your paintings as like a natural evolution of the painting. So like this is almost more of like a true representation of your art form than it's not animation really. I mean, I guess like in technical form it
It is
is,
by
but
definition.
like
I mean, that's what I'm an animation professor actually now. So the long story is like through this, I like actually got deeply into the experimental animation community,
mm,
and been so influenced. And so like I do consider myself an
but
animator
it's
and like
reductive.
my work. But yeah, the truth is, filmmaking is animation. Like animation is above like cinema. Like it's about illusion of movement through
Okay.
sequential images.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I
Got
do
it.
think it's like at a certain point, again, it's like all just semantic bullshit. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah, of
um,
course, of course.
but yeah, my work has this. It's like it's different, right? And when you watch it, your headspace, like it's like you're looking at a painting, and when you're watching a movie, and it's like you're in this in
Yeah.
between state. Um, and yeah, I know most people find my work online and mostly like through social media, which is great. But also, like I was talking to somebody the other day, like if you see my work like at scale, like in a gallery
Mhm,
with the sound, it's like it's a physical,
mhm.
immersive experience that is different. But that's what's cool about being. I discovered this too. Like when they're paintings, they're an object. They're on the wall. They exist. That's it. And then it gets
Um,
reduced. It gets reduced down on the internet or in a book or whatever. But as a film, like it exists in multiple. There's no right size for it to be displayed. And I
yeah,
like
I
that.
actually came to your work or like watched most of it that I have seen through Vimeo, which is
Yeah.
like, I actually took note of as an interesting thing. I think that's because your website points directly to Vimeo. And I was like, that's not typical, it's like that's just an interesting outlet that, I never thought of as a way of but as an animator or doing video, obviously that makes sense. So I mean, I was just that alone was curious to me.
That's the Web 2
But
to like Web 3 thing. Like I know there's a lot of Tumblr artists on,
yes, and that's
on
me.
Twitter and
Yeah.
like Instagram photographers for experimental filmmakers and experimental animators. Like Vimeo was the place, and like for about a good like I don't know 5 to 7 years, like it was a great community. That's where I met all my peers and like where my work was discovered and got into all these big film festivals. And now
Yeah.
it's gone like into a more corporate direction, and there's no. It's like it sort of died. So this is again a whole other conversation, but like my experimental animation community and my Vimeo community and Instagram community is kind of like been a transition in this Web 3 sort of like
Yeah.
COVID
I'm
era.
I'm in that same wave kind of, with the more Tumblr, Instagram side or whatever, but like, yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know any of that about Vimeo, but I've always noticed that like whenever I work with a videographer or somebody that does animation and stuff, that Vimeo is a lot more present within their portfolio than
Yeah,
than
well, they're like
YouTube in
legit.
particular, but
Yeah,
also like just a normal artist even, so
way back
it
in the
seems
day,
like
they they had better quality originally than YouTube, but then they've never had
yeah.
advertising. And I know the curators there and have met them, and they've like staff picked my film a bunch of like over a dozen times.
Yeah, and they do like
To help me.
legitimate like film festival
Yeah,
shit,
they're legit.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great
cool.
resource if you can manage to find stuff on there. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, to me, it's sort of sad like to watch these things die, but it's an evolution, and it's.
exactly. That's how I see it too. It's like, yeah, whatever, but something else will come in its place,
But it
right?
did.
Like we're
It
just
was a
talking
huge
about.
part of how my work evolved. Like I put my stuff
Yeah,
out for free on Vimeo, and like that's how I always approached art making, and because like, and that's why this space is so useful for me. But like making these works, they're not physical paintings, so they're displayed in galleries, but it's a little bit difficult and different. And like I just found my whole artistic life through the internet and through like
yeah,
online
me too.
film world. And
It
so my
sounds like
work
we're
exists
actually,
online. Like it is.
yeah, we're from the same generation.
Yeah.
I think, I totally understand. Like I've talked a lot and stuff about like my work being created to be seen on a screen and it being very difficult to show in galleries when the galleries did come around and having to like reverse engineer my work for galleries because I had quit giving a shit about physical, what the physical painting even was anymore. Um, all this is like what leads into the NFT community for me at least. Like all these things are like the beginning of that, like even us making those decisions however long ago about our work,
Yeah.
that was the beginning of what now I see as the NFT art community,
Yeah.
the Web3 art
Yeah.
community.
And like the social media aspect of it, that is part of like my origin story. Was like I was a painter. I was messing around with this moving image stuff. I was teaching at the museum in Boston, and I put a piece up on Vimeo, and like I woke up the next day and it had like 150,000 views, and it was on like the Huffington Post and like every blogs when people read blogs.
So
And it's like, wow, I didn't have to do anything. I just put my art online, and
I
like,
feel you. That was the same. Like, I have a similar story with Tumblr, but like, let's go back there actually. Then, like, let's just like get direct and like zone in. What was that piece that got you like that exposure that was on the Huffington? Did you say? I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
What
couple.
was
The
it like? And what
waiting room was like 2011.
2011?
It's still on Vimeo. It's probably one of the earliest pieces I still have up. That got like staff picked and got views and was like, all right, this is cool. And then the next one was the Deep End, which blew up and is still very popular. It's very raw and direct. And like this again is like, you can watch the evolution of my work, but like definitely these early pieces, they're just like, I'm still figuring out what the hell I'm doing. And there's something nice about that. And I keep trying to force myself as an artist to be in positions where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And yeah, then that one blew up, and then it's been a steady string. I mean, that's been kind of the career. Is like I spend like up to a year on each one of these pieces that I make, and I don't know, just going through. It was really scary at first. Like, oh, I'm devoting so much time to each one of these, but like they always hit, and like I'm just putting my heart into them and being authentic. And it's like, talk about process. I just trust the process and walk the walk, and it's like painful, like very hard. But if you just stick at it for long enough and then put it out there, like it kind of just works out. I just finished another one that I have to title and figure out how I'm going to release it. But
I love
it's
that,
like
that
I don't know what
I know
the fuck it
titling
is.
is so fucking difficult.
I don't know if I really don't know where these films are going when I make them. So it's like the whole process is sort of like I'm figuring it out what the hell I'm trying to do here while I'm doing it.
You said a year. I want to touch on that. What takes a year? Because like, are you going back? Are you going back? So like, I'm sorry, I'm just figuring out your process in my head as I go. But it's like you start out with painting. Is that right, or is it like
I can show you.
I'm just wondering if it's between physical and digital the whole time, or if it's just like working physically and then snapshotting it and keep going physically snapshot, or if you're actually working on animation and then going back to the painting.
So like typically it'll be like maybe something like this size. There we go. I'm at my desk. I got the drawing on my desk. I got a scanner bed next to me, and I got my computer. I'm working on the drawing and painting on it. I scan it in. I have that scan up on my screen. Then I take the drawing / painting thing back on my desk. I'm looking at the last frame, and then I'm going back onto the same painting, drawing over it, painting it, scanning that, looking at it. And then as I'm doing that, I'm building up each frame into a timeline where I'm scrolling through and watching it transform over time. So it's this process of like the whole physical process is art making is done physically, but it's like I'm uploading to my computer each iteration. So that's also part of the story is like when it's done, I mean, I have a bunch of stuff like this, just the whole year of drawing is on one page and it's all destroyed. So it's really like, it's a really simple, straightforward process, right? It's and you can see my studio behind me. Right? Like I'm like, talk about my evolution. Like basically, I feel like I have racing thoughts, like a lot of things going on, kind of like a hyperactive mind. And like art making is a lot of it's like trying to. I always tell people it's like art making for me is like a funnel or like a siphon. It's like me, and then it's like being refined into like something that actually can like make sense and be focused. So that's why this process, like one drawing, 1 year, one thing, no big studio with paintings all over the place, no chaos, no plans, just like one day at a time, one frame at a time if you're thinking like animation. And I find it's really liberating. That's also what's cool. It's like I'm drawing over it. Like I can't go backwards. There's no deleting. There's no like Control Z. Like it feels very, especially when you get really deep into a piece. It's like when you're working on it, it's like a sacred thing. It's like, don't fuck this up. It's like, I think I heard like it's being like the Torah, right? It's like a scribe. Like if I fuck up this one letter. I'm like, oh, you got to start over. The whole thing is holy, like, and
No pressure, man. No
yeah.
pressure.
I like that pressure, I guess.
Maybe, yeah, it helps focus maybe, but I looking at your work and then you saying about, like the hyperactive mind and stuff like that makes so much fucking sense. Like the paintings are like looking at ADD or something, almost
Yes.
like in the good way, no, not in a bad way. But I mean, just like, yeah, that like totally see it. I totally see it. That's really cool to hear. Thank you for explaining that process. I want to touch a little bit on your schooling. You said you were fortunate to go to some good schools and stuff. What schools did you go to? What did you study in school? I'm just curious.
Sure.
Yeah,
I have like a whole like love-hate relationship with education, but I am a professor.
yeah,
I'm a
okay.
college dropout at one point
Well,
and a professor. But let me go through it because
yeah,
now,
that's
yeah,
why I wanted to bring it up, is I wanted to wrap around to like you being a professor now, in that academia somewhat prevalent in your life. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't ask about the school. So like, yeah, bring us
no,
through
I
it.
think it's super relevant now because I'm like in my late 30s. I see a lot of young artists in the space, and as a professor, I talk to them. And the main thing, like you don't need to go to fucking school, or like the school is actually bad, right? Or like, what is the influence of academia? So I'm very aware of this conversation, and I think it's been my life story too. So I think there's some value in talking about it. As a young person, I was super lucky to have like mentors who are artists and art school teachers who like took interest in me. I do think I was like I wanted that, so I made it possible. So like, if you want, mentors, like reach out to people. But basically, like friends of my parents, or like I lived in a suburb in Ohio. There's creative people who were like designers or whatever, and I would just like talk to them and get their advice. And like when I was in elementary school, like the art teacher knew I was like, you're my person, like, and we were bonding. And then and then I was really fortunate to go to RISD summer camp,
Mm,
which is like a lot of like great artists have gone through that rite of passage. But
hmm.
basically, if you know RISD in Providence, is a great art school.
Yeah,
You go
it
there
was
for the
the
summer.
it school for a while, for
Yeah,
sure, like
totally.
in the art circuit.
It still has cachet, and in the animation world, it's still considered one of the best departments in the world. Uh, so you spend the summer. I'm from Ohio. I went to Providence. I was like 15. And I spent like 2 months in the campus dorms and went to art classes. And your teachers are all like adjuncts, and it was pretty like my like coming of age. Like, wow, I'm gonna make it in the real world. Like, I'm good with these people, and I'm like chilling with people from around the world. And like, this is my finally like vibing with people around me. And I went back to Ohio, and I told my parents, I was like, I'm going to drop out of high school. Like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, this is like holding me back. Like, right. So like, I, I, now that I'm older, it's like, just finish high school. Like, who gives a fuck? Right. But like, I remember at like 15, 16, I was like, I cannot stay here like anymore. I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah, this is life or
Yeah.
death.
Yeah. It felt really heavy. Like, this is bad. And I was fortunate enough to like help with my neighbor knew someone in Boston who knew about this private art school, high school. So I applied to this art school with my portfolio from RISD and like all my stuff from home, and I got in. And this is a Walnut Hill. It's a school in suburbs of Boston. So last 2 years of high school, I was away from home, boarding in an arts high school where I just went to classes in the morning and then did art all afternoon and evening. And all the kids there were like really passionate and from around the world. And like, it's kind of like perfect high school experience. Got to like really focus on myself and my work and feel like this is what like everyone talks about, like being an artist never felt like a real like thing you could do. Like being at this school as in a high school is like, I'm around kids who are going to Juilliard, who are like already in like famous ballet companies. Like, I can actually do this. Like, it gave me the confidence to like really do
Yeah,
it,
must
which
have
is
been
great at
nice.
a young age. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was making big paintings. This is the time where I was like, I'm going to be like that big painter guy.
Really? At what age was this?
So this was like set 16 to 18.
At 16 to 18, you're like, I'm gonna make huge paintings. Like that's
Well, I'm
what's
like the
up.
kids on Twitter now who are in the NFT space. Like, I'm going to be the next Picasso.
Yeah, no,
I see
it's
the
crazy.
bravado in the
Yeah.
young people, and it's like I definitely had some of that,
I
for
laugh. I
sure.
just laugh because at 16, 17, I don't think I knew like that, like what fine art was yet.
Yeah.
I lived in the sticks, man. Anyways, go ahead.
No, totally. I'm very refined. I've like always, yeah. I feel like
Yeah, you're
artists
really
to me have
lucky.
always been like wise, elevated people in society. It was so obvious that that's what you wanted to be. I think even now, the more we like move into the whatever the information age or this era, like creativity is all that is left, like that is unique and that is it's the highest
Mhm.
form of like humanity.
Imagination.
Yeah, or like actually like giving something back beyond like I don't know. This is a longer story.
Are you standing up?
Yes, I work at a standing desk and I stand up all day.
I noticed just because like you don't sit like this.
I'm gonna.
Nobody sits like
I
this.
talked about
I'm
the
like, what this
overactivity. I need to like.
this dude is really fucking like hyper.
I'm not a
I
hyper
love it.
person, but
Okay.
I
Sorry to interrupt. I
I
just
also say
that's
as an animator, dude, like
adorable.
you can't sit down at my age anymore.
Oh, word.
Like
That's interesting.
I had the whole back. I've grown up and dealt with the back issues already, and standing.
Wow.
I highly recommend standing desk. I
Yeah,
think it
I actually
keeps the
I
blood flow
rarely
going when I'm
sit.
working.
But anyways, I'm sorry I
Anyway, back to
interrupted. You
school.
were in the
Yeah, so I
middle
went
of
to
a
this great
story
high
with the
school,
school.
and I went to MICA, which is in Baltimore for college, Maryland Institute College of Art, another great school. I was a painting major. The long story short is like it was just I was there for 2 years and I was bored and just was like, when do I get to? It was the same thing from high school. I was like, when do I get to go be a real person? Like, get me out of here. And that I, I already had a relationship with art, and I see this with I can say this now as a professional, like in mentoring kids. Like some kids don't need school or need to be there. There's obviously a lot of benefit to getting the degree and the networking, which I was like not interested in at the
Networking.
time. The networking is everything; it's so important.
Yeah,
But
there
for
should be
me, it was
school
like the
just for
art that I'm
networking.
making was all that mattered, and I didn't want to make assignments. I was like, I'm an artist. Like I'm got at this. I got my body of work. Like I got ideas, and this is just like, why am I doing this? So I did drop out ultimately, and I just moved to Asheville, North Carolina, which is a cool community in the mountains.
Hmm.
And I
So
got a
very
job.
artsy, right? Like
Yeah,
very
everyone's
like
an artist. It's kind of like
bohemian,
yes,
fucking like
it's what
artsy
I needed.
community up in the mountains.
Yeah, so I went from the Midwest to like New England, and then like college, and I was like, I just need to go to like Hippieville, like in the
Yeah.
mountains, and find myself and my work. And that is where like this kind of whole animation stuff evolved from. Yeah, that's what I did. I moved to the mountains with no plan, and I just made art there and worked day jobs. And
What is it? This is after college?
yeah, after 2 years of college, so after my sophomore year of college, I was probably like 21.
Okay. And then what brought
So,
you back around to being a professor and all this and that? And
well,
like,
I mean, you want the whole life story. I mean, I was in North Carolina for a while. I realized down there that I like that lifestyle, Bohemia, but I'm like an intellectual Jewish man, like who needs stimulant, like to be in the urban environment and like talking and part of stuff.
yeah, you seem like a New Yorker.
Yeah, exactly. So I got bored in the mountains. So yeah, I like came back. Basically, and I was also a young person, and I said, I don't want to be at college. I was 21. I got to be a college dropout in the mountains for a while, and I said, is this me for the rest of my life? Nah. So I went. Boston was kind of like where I went to high school, right? And I was like, I love Boston. New York scared me because of like the indulgences, essentially, because I had a lot of friends in New York. No, and like
Yeah.
I can talk about it now, right? Like everyone's doing coke and oxy, and like I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to die. I'm like, I like recreational like stuff, but like I'm a serious artist. I'm not just going to go out to like fashion parties and do coke
Yeah.
every night. So because that's not me. So, but
I
Boston was
understand that.
close
Trust me.
enough to do it. So I moved to Boston, and then I was going down to New York, like on the bus, Chinatown bus once a week for a while until I started like dating and meeting my wife here in Boston and settling down. But I went back to BU for art history. So Boston
Mm.
University, completely different from what I ever thought I would do, right? Like a big university, art history. Like I was writing papers and
That's actually really
and
wild.
and
I can't imagine like,
yeah,
going from like making art full time to then having to like write about it
yeah.
nonstop. I can see
Well,
the benefit, but like,
yeah. What
fuck, that
happened?
seems
I was kind of like
difficult.
I realized like until I'm gonna make a living just being an artist, like what are you gonna do what are you going to do besides making your work to like make it happen? So when I was in North Carolina, I was like, all right, it's like very chill environment, and I'm working like a not demanding job to make ends meet or whatever. And then I'm going and working on my art. But like I can be in Boston and like study art history and work really hard, like understanding art and like talking about it and writing about it and being like challenged and influenced, and then going back to the studio and making art. And I found like
Mm.
that's what I did. Like I also tell us that like when you're in college, when you're first out, it can be really hard. But if you go back to college and you like get what it is and like it's just a job, it's not that hard. Like and I like
How
to
old
do
were
it.
you when you went back to
I was like
college?
21, so I was like
Okay.
2 years older than the average junior
Yeah,
or senior.
so it's like you
Yeah.
went. You
I had a
didn't
real
take that
life
long
then
of a
and then came
break.
back. Yeah, no,
Yeah. Okay.
no, I didn't. Because I just want to get out of the way. So yeah, like it was a pain in the ass, but it was good for me. And the best part was kind of what we're doing now here is like it really clarified for me that like talking about the ideas is what we were saying before. The actual painting isn't as important to me as the process. And art for me isn't just a thing, it's a conversation. And writing and talking about it is what it is, so much of what it is for me. So while I was going to school and making my work, I interned for like a few weeks at the Museum of Fine Arts, and they liked me, so they hired me as an educator there. And then by the time I had graduated from BU, I was already a full-time museum educator. I just sort of fell into it and was like, I'm teaching art at this encyclopedic museum every day, and then going back to my studio, and that's my life. And so it's like I kind of found my groove there. How I became a professor was the college I teach at. It's literally next door to the museum. I started getting a lot of press and awards and film festivals, and people were like, oh, this guy's like, there's like a legit animator working at the museum. And when they needed to hire a new teacher. So like, yeah, that's my story. Is like never studied animation in school once, did not get a master's degree. They hired me because of my experience and my body of work. And then I've been doing that for a while. And this is the semester. I just had my meeting this morning with my other senior thesis teachers. I'm only teaching one class, a senior thesis class, and this is the first time I'm not like advising and doing full-time load because of NFTs. And it's like now my life is like I am a full-time artist, and I get to teach one class and mentor kids a whole year to make one film. So like the dream. I do it. I'm basically doing it for free anyways. But now I could say I could do it for free. But so we'll see where that goes.
How long have you been teaching?
Since like I got out of college, right? So like 22, 23.
Okay.
It was
so like
mostly museum ed. It's like
more.
K through 12, and then I would do all ages, like adults and old people and stuff.
Wow.
Now it's seniors in college are like 21, 22. So it's like full circle. I'm trying to be the cool teacher that like it's all about the art for me, and like giving them permit. Like being a teacher is awesome. So useful for me as a person.
What grade is this? Or like I don't even grade. Like what level or like what year?
Undergrad seniors. Oh, so what I've been teaching though is
college or
college. So it's been sophomores, juniors, and seniors. I did teach night classes for all ages, and I've taught high school. Actually, this is cute. I went back and taught one semester at my high school in Boston, an animation class, because it's like they love the kids that make it and shit. And
I mean, that's the story. That's awesome. So now you're doing like you said, just you're working with people who are working on just one video for the entire year. You get to guide them through that whole. I mean, that is the dream, right? You really distilled it into like what the best part about it really is. It seems
about
like
helping artists. Like that's I'll say this big like because I've done it with graduate students too. That's been fun. Like graduate schools, you can like go out and find an artistic mentor, and they pay you and pull you in, and you just go and do studio visits like every 3 months. And it's like that is so intimate. And for me, when the artist is actually good, it's like it's like really fun to like
and rewarding.
You
get a lot out of that too.
100%. And it's such an honor to be asked to go that deep with someone. So yeah, with these students, it's like you go through all these different classes and all these exercises, and you learn all these techniques and make little films. When you're a senior, it's like you're going to make your graduate film, and one of your classes is just working with me all year. It's like it's individual. So on Twitter or in the space, we see about like artists do this, artists do that. Let me tell you the answer. It's different for everybody. Like you're not going to get like no general advice. This is bullshit. So like, don't worry about it. Like having like one-on-one crits, like and guiding someone through the year. Like I'm saying, like it doesn't even matter what the ultimate film is. Like that is the meaning of life, man. We're like bonding as human beings, and like me passing down any kind of, I don't know. I learn a lot from them, and it feels cool to to care so much about a work that's not yours. I don't know. It's like easier, right?
Yeah. No, I get that. I dig that, but very rewarding. I
Yeah.
can imagine. And I like what you said about there's not any sort of like general prescription of how to do anything. Every artist is just so different. Like that's why I think it's just so important that people understand, like, develop like yourself. Like you gotta like the way to be better at your work is to like understand how you make work better. Like that's the only way to do it. It's not
Yeah.
like become a better drawer or painter because at least as far as I can tell, like there's certain ceiling on talent, no matter who you are or whatever. Like you can only, you kind of got to work with what you're given, but your imagination and your creativity, and then you as an authentic person and what you bring to the table, those things are limitless. You can go very, so I always
100%.
say
And
like
people say my work is
the
so different and they've never seen anything like it. It's kind of like that's the highest compliment. It's like because
yeah.
I'm
So
being
like
completely me, and no one else can be me. Like
I
it's
want to
so
bring
obvious.
it to that. I want to bring it to the content of your work because that's something we're not touching on like whatsoever. And I
Yeah,
actually didn't see anything where it touched on that. A lot
yeah,
about your process, and I saw some of your older work where it is like that more chunky, where you didn't know exactly what you're doing. And I love the like what you said about that too, about how like nice that was. Like when you don't know what you're doing, and how that can result in things that you can never capture again. You didn't say that. That's what I'm saying about that, but I always find that. But as far as the content in your work, you have a big eye behind you. I see a lot of eyes in your work. Just like, can we talk a little bit about that? Are we looking at like esoteric type, occult type stuff at all, or is it more
no, but it's interesting that it goes.
cartoonish, or what is this to you? Symbolisms?
I mean, I mean, I want to say yes, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of the point. I'm trying to be universal, and like I think it lends itself in a lot of ways, which is interesting. Like people see themselves in it, and it can lend itself to like it's relatable to a lot of different things. I do think that comes from my museum and art history background in a lot of ways, where like a lot of what my brain was doing was trying to synthesize all these different cultural symbols and ideas from all different periods, and like that my visual culture as a modern human being is like so diverse. So like when I'm making work, it ends up being this kind of like multilingual design thing. um, Knowing your work and knowing your vibe, like I would love to talk, and some of your other interviews, like my shit is dark, and like a lot of people don't, I don't hear that from a lot of people, which is interesting. uh, I'm and when I talk to other artists, like my whole well, let me talk about the eye first. My whole thing is about optics and illusion, right? I'm like dealing with that, and our eyes are seeing it.
Get it, yeah. But I'm just gonna say it's not cheesy because I don't want that to be cheesy because I say the same shit. But like I was just reading, I'm in a book coming out, Crypto Art Begins or whatever. But they just like sent me. Well, I think they posted it even like a quote from it, and I say something about that, or like, or in the quote it says something about an element of the collective unconscious that he simply translates. And even reading that, I was just like, is that fucking dumb?
Dude,
Is that
that's
fucking
no,
like,
it's not. And
you
I
know?
should say it's cheesy because I'm the same way. Like that's one of my famous lines too. Is like when it's really going well, it's like you're not really making it, and um, it's not cheesy. It can be. It's like all cults. Like spirit. A lot of the things we talk about said in the wrong context can be
Yes.
right. That's what my wife says when I'm teaching at home and she hears me like mentoring a student or other artist. She's like, "You sound like a cult leader." I'm like, it's kind of like the conversations we have are kind of like in that range of like
Yeah.
higher level, like mystical kind of
Yeah.
thought, and it can sound deranged out of context, but it really is true. Artists can relate to
Yes.
it, right? That like
To that is wonderful. It can sound deranged out of context. Like that, for me, to put it lightly, I'm sure that I've had conversations where it would sound up like like it would sound like I'm a serial killer or something, actually, like a real, like real loose cannon of a person. Like we're worried about him type
mhm.
thing. But like I totally get it. Like to me, art is as close to the divine as like us as humans can really get. Whatever the divine is, you know, my partner, a business partner and things, Sky Golpe
Yeah,
likes to say, like, like to deny the whole existence of the divine, which is an interesting concept to me because I had never even thought about that before. But like, I believe in some sort of divine, I guess, but like maybe not. I don't know. But like, but whatever I believe in as some sort of greater something, art is the closest thing that we can do to communicate it and communicate with it, and maybe it communicates through us with it.
Yeah, I don't
You
think you
know?
have to label it, right? That's the word God is so cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's like it
Yeah. I mean,
explains a
yeah.
lot
It's
of
just
what I like. It does when you there's a lot. My work definitely deals with like a lot of what humans have been dealing with through religion historically. I, right? It's just, and I always thought like as a Jewish man too, like the 20th century, like Judaism is really told in the 20th century through like modern art and comedy and literature more
Are
than
you
like.
practicing?
eh, It's yes and no. I mean,
Or
I don't go to synagogue. I'm probably more lapsed, like socially Jewish than ever. But it's like my race and my identity and my
socially
soul.
Jewish? Is that a term? I like that.
No, I mean this. I
Interesting.
can't. It's really difficult to talk about, except to say like my literal genetic and cultural background is
Mhm.
Jewish, so I'm
Word.
Jewish, and it's like
I
such a
hear
big
you.
part of what being an artist is too. Like,
Yeah.
um, not because I'm Jewish, but because I happen to be. Again, this is what I say too. It's like I'm very aware that that was the system and mythology that I was born into, and that
Mhm.
it's repeated.
You call it a mythology.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
No, I dig it.
Not
I
saying
mean,
not
I
saying
keep
mythology is true or false. Like that, it's a myth structure. It's a story, right? This is what I want to say to you too. Is that like mythology is all like start whatever like Marvel comics. Let's say like something dumb like
yeah,
that.
sure.
The only
Yeah,
reason we love it is because it's a metaphor for our own lives. So when we're
100%.
really feeling like we're the heroes in our journey, you do start to talk in like these really loaded mythological terms. We're like,
Mhm.
and when I'm making my art, it feels like it's at that level of like my
Yeah.
most heroic acts are artistic, I guess, which is why I go in that place. I think nobody knows anything, right? But that there's clearly like we have a psychology that's collective, and consciousness is a really fascinating phenomenon, and where there's a lot of unanswered questions, and
Mhm.
so as people we're going to create myths and stories and symbols and rituals to make sense of this stuff, period. And that I think visual art and most music and all that, like, all comes back to that, right? Like that
Mhm.
conversation with the divine, whatever that is, in the most primitive sense. And as our societies become more complex, we have more complicated rituals and sects and societies and things like that. But so it's like I'm very aware that like I have a very unique Jewish identity that's a Holocaust, like grandson of Holocaust survivors in the United States, and
Mhm.
it's all loaded. But like the Judaism as a religion and everything surrounding it, like I also am very fascinated by it. But I'm a kid
Yeah.
from everything. Um, so I
Yeah,
just say like
same.
I'm Jewish, but I hate it's like saying I'm an animator, right? It's like it's not the
Yeah,
right
I
answer.
understand, and it is one of those that's like, there's a dualism at play where it's like the religion and then like the life or like the heritage and all that stuff, right? And as far as religion's concerned, I'm with you. Like a long time ago, I listened to this talk about objective truths. Like I think that the question was, does objective truth exist? In general, and it kind of broke it down to like if there is any objective truth, maybe there's one, and it could be something is happening. And I was like, wow, that's pretty elegant. I like that. And that kind of then defined my religious belief of like, it's not religion, but like anytime religion comes up, I'm like, well, I'm not going to deny something's happening. Like, I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what the fuck, but something is. Nobody
Yeah,
can deny it, right? Nobody can really, because if you
yeah.
can say something's happening, something's clearly happening.
I can't
So
speak for anybody else.
that
I will say like art making for me is my
it can't speak for anybody
definitely
else.
my
For me,
connection with the
something is.
divine or you. And so like I'm aware, I like feel that energy and know how crucial it is for I think. And there's no answers in life, but definitely feeling like you have purpose and that you're part of something bigger than yourself, and that
Mhm.
you're connected with the the universe is a good thing. And so I keep that as like what centers me.
Yeah.
And then just talking to you, I know I listened to other interviews of you, like you've had your rough past and all that stuff. Like I've gone through shit too, and for me, it came to like I want to be an artist that is like respected and makes work that it seems valuable and worth collecting
Mhm.
and is adding something to humanity. Like I really want to give back in that way. And if I'm going to be an artist, like be good at it and be unique, right? But I also want to not go crazy. I've like dipped my toe more than most people, I think, in like the crazy.
I went crazy already, and I'm coming back already.
Don't
But
want to
like,
be crazy anymore. I'll say that, like again or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. No, I dig that. That's
You know
funny.
what I mean?
Like,
Though it's
that's
like you
really,
can live a really tripped out, enlightened life, but be so disconnected from your family and friends and like the community or like people who are suffering. I don't know. I want to be in whatever feels like reality,
yeah,
even if it's not, and
I
no
get that.
reality exists, because
That's
it makes me
interesting.
feel in control of myself and like not out
Oh,
of control. And I've
well,
learned that like, yeah, I love my friends. Like, even if it's all a simulation or whatever, like I love my simulated family and friends, and I want to be
yes,
kind to
it is
them.
a
And like,
simulation. You're pointing in so many ways towards something that I thought early on in this conversation. I was like, I don't like, maybe I'm crazy, but so I want to get into, before we run out of time here, I want to talk to you about, like influence and your tastes. And, like, you said, like, people say that you're darker and you're learning about yourself or whatever, subject matter being dark. Um, so like, let's talk about inspiration, what influences your work, both in art, outside of art, media, etc. But in leading into that, like, I'm getting a fucking like Pie vibe from you. Do you like that movie?
yes, oh my god,
Yeah. When
huge.
you're talking about like Jewish mysticism, shit like
Yes,
that, and then when you were talking about like the timing of your work and like the tick 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 tick, and like
dude,
for
that
some
movie, Darren
reason right at the
Aronofsky.
beginning of the interview,
Yeah.
your energy is like that guy, obviously Jewish, but like I was like, and I was resisting bringing it up until now, using it as
I'll say
a
I
way
am not like a
conduit.
Kabbalah. I'm not a mystic. Like I'm actually the most. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like it's
But when you
philosophically,
touch
but
on like the eye and like the
yes. Let me
whatever
say
and like
this
the
though.
occult and stuff and like people talking about the
Yeah,
occult, you're touching on these things inadvertently, maybe even, but like
sure, but it's
you're
like I'm not a psych. Like I've always been like this is part of my like being in the hippie community, like too, whatever. It's like I've always been sort of like one step removed from like really being in the like
yeah,
I don't need
like an
the rituals.
observer of it rather than a
Yeah,
participant
exactly.
of it.
Like I don't actually need the rituals. I actually don't like have this. I don't like pray really. I don't like have this like.
Hmm.
And I don't walk around like I'm like some like, enlightened person or anything. I'm just a guy trying to get by. But like
Hmm.
philosophically, I love this stuff. So again, it's more like a scholar. Which Pi, that movie came out probably at the end of high school for me. I think it's genius student film or whatever. I mean, and I definitely vibe
Aronofsky's
with it.
work,
It's
right?
also Aphex Twin did the music, some of it, and like Aphex's Twins work is also
Nice.
vibes with my energy, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
it's mathematical and structural, and it's almost an experiment as much as a work of art to take in. And
Hmm.
yeah, um, and then yeah, like going back to the Jewish thing, but just like the people always been attracted to are the people who are like really awake and like energized about like there's
I
something
love
going
Pi
on
too,
here,
by the
man.
way. Like
Yeah,
that movie's fucking
great.
amazing. I watched it recently again, and just like I forgot how badass this movie is, and
Love
just
the
like the
aesthetic. Yeah,
ending. Yeah, it's
100.
very
Yeah,
inspiring. Like watching it again recently made me realize like how much it actually like really wormed in my head when
yeah,
I
but
saw it
also
as a young adult.
it's funny.
Like
I
it
saw your
influenced
other
my work.
interview. Yeah, you mentioned Kafka in another interview, and it's like to me, it's Kafka
Hmm.
might be the through line through all this, and Kafka was huge for me. And like, yeah, as a kid, right, like
That makes a
16,
lot of sense
17,
too.
it's
But
like
I
I'm
love
an
Kafka.
existent. Maybe I still am, but like existentialism, like makes a lot
I
of
would
sense
say
to
too,
me.
like I used to say I'm an existentialist, but I feel like I outgrew it. Like I feel
Yeah, me
like when I
too. I
get
don't.
like
It does. It's not a good definition, but it is like. Well, I'm really attracted to work that is described that way.
yes,
And
me too. Yes,
like
if
waiting for it to
existential
go
is
and stuff
used in
like
like a
that. Like,
descriptive
yeah,
terms or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's check that out. Like I understand the usefulness of the term, and like I'm still attracted to it, but I wouldn't use it to define myself. I definitely went through my phase though. Fucking a, like
yeah,
heavily.
yeah. But that's just my. Again, I think it goes back to like just my personality, and so much of it is genetic, and that's another thing. I just like feel like there's a what do they call it? it's like I have a genetic history. I also have like that. I think like this sounds occult, maybe. Now that I'm saying it, like there's a memory history that's sort of passed down with families. It's not crazy, right? Because your parents are raised by their parents and their parents. Like there's sort of this like.
Well, there's even now evidence of like genetic history passed down through even DNA. So like past traumas.
Well, and the way your brain is
like,
structured physically is going to go in different personality types, and so I'm just I've always felt like like an outsider intellectual, where like I was dropped into this human body, and like, well, this is interesting, and that's life is about trying to figure it out.
You mentioned Aphex Twin. What music do you like? And I'm particularly like, I was just talking with Sasha Stiles about like music. She's a poet, so I assumed she probably listens to non-lyrical music. So for you when you're working, what are you listening to? Like I could see for you too, maybe non-lyrical music being advantageous. And especially then, like you said, Aphex Twin, I see techno, I see something maybe that almost has the beat that you're working in and shit like that to like drop some knowledge about what you listen to or what you listen to.
It goes back and forth. Typically, I'll say that like when I'm music in relation to my art making process is different than like music in my life generally.
Yep.
And a lot of times
when I'm
I'm drawing, a lot of times I don't listen to anything. It's like I can't hear. Does that make sense? When you're like, it's like
one sentence is heightened.
Yeah, all my senses turned off.
One?
Yeah,
sure. You like you're averting all of the energy to your divert all energy to shields.
Every brain cell has
energy to like attention.
So it is that feeling. It's like I'm listening to music, but I'm not like, what's the point? Because like I'm not actually hearing it. I mean, I guess that's sort of like
you don't need to be engaged in that way at all. Then when you're doing the work, like sometimes
yes, I do.
I'm working, I need to be distracted almost, or I need that to be distracted so that I can focus on this.
It depends what I'm doing, but
I listen to noise a lot, where it's like unstructured music, so I don't feel like I'm actually getting into it. I just feel like I'm in an atmosphere, maybe or something.
Or if you listen to the work that I compose for my films, it is to me. It's like reverberations in like a factory gallery with like a boombox two floors up, and like so it's like you're immersed in like this audio space, but it's not like a song. So Nicolas Jarre is like a French musician.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, stuff like that.
His dad too is an amazing artist.
And I love radio. Like Radiohead has always been like the mainstream like music that's like, God, this makes me like when I'm drawing, it vibes with what I'm doing.
I can see that.
But the truth is, I have a 2-year-old. I love like what I've been listening to mostly now, like for all summer, is it's hip hop covers on a kettle drum, no vocals.
On a kettle.
It's like 90s hip hop with a kettle drum. It came up on a playlist once, and then it's like generic. It sounds like if you're at a bar, like island music, but it's like jams from my childhood.
That's amazing.
I run to it. I listen to it when I'm drawing. I put it on when my daughter's eating, and it's just like it's island vibes. I even have like on my Zoom, I've been having like a palm tree virtual background. That I'm
imagining like a resort, like.
Well, if you look at my work and you understand what kind of person I am, like if I'm going to consume art for like, it's medicine, it's pleasure, this is the whole thing I have with my wife too. Is like I hate shows that are violent or like Pi. Like actually sitting down and watching it right now might actually be like a lot for me to handle. Like I'm actually like looking for. This could just be being a father or something. I'm just like looking to relax, like outside of maybe the NFT space too. It's like been an intense grind in a good way, really, really fun. But I don't know. This isn't true though. Late at night, I'll put on like I really like jazz and like I listen to this is such a bad answer. You'd have to look at my playlist. I like good music, man. This is somebody I recommend to a lot of people because they're not that big. But Westerman is like a British musician. Westerman. He put out an album a couple of years ago that's been on like once a week playlist for me. And it's like it's kind of like I guess it's like my work. It's like personal, introspective, like pleasing, but a bit like I don't know. I like Elliot Smith. I like like I like singer-songwriters, like musicians that are like me as an artist, I guess.
You brought up Radiohead, your work evokes a little Tom York. You know, I've seen some videos he's done, and album art even. But it brought up really to mind then from Tom York, I jumped to Flying Lotus, and then I thought of the Cosmogramma cover, and then that comes
Yeah.
right back to your work, really, honestly, right?
We're all in the same. I'm a Flying Lotus is Adult Swim family. It's all mixed
Yes,
together. And
Thundercat, all that
yeah,
Brain Feeder
Thundercat,
shit. I
Flying
really
Lotus shit,
dig
man.
Flying Lotus. I actually
That's
bummed
what,
that
yeah.
Flying Lotus, all of his albums now has all his. Well, I guess that soundtrack he did recently for Netflix, which brings it all in your family. Netflix, Adult Swim, I guess. But uh, he did that soundtrack. But he has all these guest artists now on all his tracks where there's all these vocals. So his albums are like pop albums. And I was like, I like your first two, man. Or like first three. I love Los Angeles. I love Cosmogramma. I love when there's a few vocal flourishes, but like I don't like the full on ones. But like, yeah, I'm a big Flying Lotus fan. I see
That's a
that
lot that way for a lot of
vibing.
artists. And the first time I feel like discovering an art, it's like doing drugs, right? It's like you're trying to
Oh
relive
yeah.
that first high. And I
Oh my God, that's
when my
so good.
shit was like,
I've called vinyl collecting like drugs before, and like I called music drugs before, but comparing the first listen or hearing like that first is like chasing the first fucking high. I'm gonna
that's
feel like
so
a
much of
real
art.
fucking
Yeah.
addict, man, from now on because I feel that all the time. I can
That's
feel like a
what being a
junkie.
collector in this space is about. Like
Yeah.
what a lot of those gals are
Wow.
doing.
I'm now realizing that's the feeling of like when you read a book by that or by like a particular person and then you're just like that was so good and then you read another one and it was like that's not as good. I need more. Like what else have they written? And you buy all their books and shit. That's a fuck, man. That's
Yeah.
junkie behavior. God damn it.
No, it's good. It's like it's like when art really it changes you. I was gonna say like Flying Lotus is great. I will listen to it for pleasure, and I love smart, like skillful craft. Like that guy can write music and like really
Oh yeah.
knows the history
Yeah,
of
he's
music.
brilliant.
And like when I listen to it, it's like, all right, this is someone I could like. You're challenging me. I know what you're doing, and you're pushing me to the next level. And like, right as an artist, like that's what I I'm chasing that artist where it's like you are
Yeah.
right? Like, and the more, well, right, the more you age, the less you get that, and like you have to find that. But when I first heard Flying Lotus, is probably like 2012 or something. I don't know. It was like I remember it being like paradigm
Yep.
shift. Damn,
Yep.
hell yeah, oh my god, like, and it's still to this day, it's like top notch shit. And
Yeah. I
you can
actually
see
just
it in the
picked
way
up
they
on
manage
one
their
not long
career.
ago.
Like they're a real artist, and they're playing the game
Oh
too, where
yeah.
it's like doing Netflix things and playing with
Well,
social media, but still always being a real artist in the middle of.
yeah, it's interesting when Cosmogramma came out. I think that's really my introduction to Flying Lotus. I knew of him before that, but like I really got interested around that album. But I remember what in particular made me super interested was that there was a short documentary, and I can't even remember where I saw it because like the internet was new, social media was new-ish. But there was a video of Flying Lotus, I believe himself, in the studio with the artist who did the cover, who did like all like because the artist and it was showing like the artist drawing the lines and all this, and it was one of those like this is the kind of artist I want to be and how I want to interact with musicians, like right here, like this is it, like and this musician cares enough about the artwork that's going to be on his album that he's in this artist studio hand picking and talking with the artist. I'm like, this is the kind of that I mean, I remember that very specifically as like a moment in my where it's like forming my own career in my mind of like this is it. This is here's that's really cool. And I still love Brain Feeder. I just said, I
Yes.
bought I
Winston
bought
Hacking.
Cosmogramma on
Yeah.
vinyl just the other day.
Winston Hacking is
What's
the
that?
guy who does this. Winston Hacking, he would kill it in the space. I haven't talked to him since. Oh my god, he's like Joe P's. Everyone loves that work. He does similar cutout, like it's like After Effects, like real materials cut out and animated digitally, and like he's done a bunch of those videos for Flying Lotus.
Oh, cool. And shout
And
out to Joe
I
Pease
have
too.
to,
Like I'm going to be
yeah.
interviewing him actually soon.
That's
Joe
the best
Pease,
part too for like
PNP.
talking about us who like existed before this movement. It's so awesome to see these people get into space and like
Oh yeah.
I'm telling everyone like Joe was like like sending me some message. I was like, you're gonna be fine, dude. Like just
Yeah,
put it
it
out.
is
Like
really interesting. Like, yeah, like I guess let's bring this all around and wrap this up with
yeah,
that with this talk about like because it is super interesting to me. Like I don't think I was aware of how prevalent you were, in like the online arts community. But for this entire online arts community, Tumblr, you were on Tumblr and Vimeo and stuff like that. you know, and this is something a friend said to me, you know, last year when I first got into NFTs. About it now, it's, oh Jesus, time flies. But anyways, I'm an old vet. When I was first getting into NFTs, he said something like, you know, the future arrived and you were already there, and that's how it feels. I feel like for a lot of us who started out on social media, you know, using social media from the jump to expose our artwork and stuff like that, that like we're like an entire scene, subculture, do you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, that existed already and just was unexposed. But we've been here, we've
Yeah.
been sitting here, you know, like and it's so interesting. It's like one of the last untapped subcultural potentials, almost, I would say, you know, like, and obviously new ones will arise and evolve and everything like that, but at this moment, and now, like, seeing the people who are rising and becoming prevalent in the Web3 scene, like a lot of them are the appropriate ones, it seems like, you know, such as yourself, such as Joe, you know, things like that. A lot of the people who I saw popping up on Tumblr, I'm now becoming closer friends with now in the Web3 space, especially like I was just in London talking with Carborn, you know,
I
and he's
saw,
been
yeah,
jumping
love,
around the space, and
we've been
like
in touch, yeah.
me and him really clicked, you know, but it was one of those feelings of like old friends. It was like, yeah, because we probably were bumping up against each other on Tumblr for the last decade or whatever, you know, like, but it's all these artists, and I feel it's really cool. Like, can you speak to that at all? Like,
Yes,
you're
we
saying
didn't
how
get into
cool
that
it is,
yet.
and how much
It's
it, how good it feels, but like,
incredible.
we're
That's,
we're a whole culture, right?
yeah.
We're a
Just
subculture,
the
right?
people listen to don't get, it's a subculture. It reminds me of like skating or graffiti. Like it's very similar, that it's like this
Wonderful.
underground natural thing that had a lot of time to grow without
Yes.
corporate.
Yes.
There's no money
Which
for
is
long
so
enough.
important to like a
Yeah.
rich subculture. Like we are a rich subculture. We have a
Yes.
decade history,
Yes.
you know, and we weren't polluted. We weren't that polluted, at
That's right.
least.
Well, the people, I mean, there's been people who were in and out of it, but the people who stuck around and have like just been
Mhm.
devoted to it, everyone has seen it happen.
The people
Um,
who started on Tumblr who are now in Web3, like there is definitely, they are being somewhat successful and getting a little
this
bit
is, yeah.
shine and
So
everything. The
it
ones
doesn't,
that have
yeah.
dedicated and like still exist from the Tumblr days, right? Who stuck
Yeah.
around.
So yeah, if you're in this space and you're new, it's like this is the 15, 20-year reward of like just doing what you were doing. It's like it's not
Exactly.
work.
Yes.
It's just what it happened.
Yes.
Um, I feel like I'm in a subculture. Saying GM on Twitter, knowing these spaces, talking to these people talking to really cool people every day through DMs and like
Yeah.
this privately. It's legit subculture. What's cool now is like people in the subculture have money and knowledge and are like really fucking smart. Like the
Mhm.
smartest people, I think, like the most creative minds like are really attracted to the
Mhm.
space, so it's like an incubator,
Yeah.
and it's so cool to see shit fail. Like every big
Mhm.
brand, every artist who's like not really taking it, like putting, like being real about it, it's just not working out. Like if you're not part of the real, if you're not real,
Yes.
it's not happening. And so yeah, it's really cool, and I feel like because it's decentralized and we have power, like we get to make it. That was my whole thing. Like
Mhm.
right when someone asked like, "Why'd you get in this space now?" When you did, blah blah. It's like I have to. It's like my responsibility to guide this
Mhm.
thing
Yeah.
towards like. And it seems so
Yes.
all year it's been obvious to me, but now people are kind of waking up to it. It's like the real artists are here. Like this space is
Yes.
nothing without the art. Like that's what made it different. What matters year to year? Like I've seen trends come and go online for 20 years now. Like I'm telling
Yep.
you what lasts. I'm telling you the artists that last. I'm telling you what people
Yep.
like. I'm telling you what people who are not in the
Isn't it
space yet
funny?
value the
The
most. Like it's already been there. So
Isn't it funny seeing those aesthetic trends come and go? Like when you've been in the space as long as you and I have. Now I'm saying the space as if it's like the last 20 years. But you see them at their infancy. You can see that's going to
yeah,
catch on, and then you watch it. Oh, it caught on. Oh,
yep,
it's everywhere. Oh shit, it's on a magazine cover. Oh shit, Kim Kardashian's wearing it. Oh shit, you know. And then all of a sudden you watch it crash too. Oh, now it's not there anymore. A year later,
yep.
oh, something new. But you just watch them come and go, and you feel almost like you can predict the future or something at some point, you know, like you can just, and like you said, you can see what sticks around, what comes and goes. Work like yours, which is timeless, you know, it sticks around. I don't want to be egoistic or egoic, I guess would be the word, but my work has stuck around because it's, and I haven't changed. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same shit. Not shit, but like it's the same thing.
Same
But
voice.
that's
Yeah.
built into it, you know, I'm sure built into your work too. And like when I talk to operators, we talked about this. no timestamps, no advertisements, no, this or that that's gonna, put it in place. And like, it's really advantageous for us artists who have been had this bigger vision, I think, all along. I
Yes.
think people like you or I probably had a feeling that this was coming. Web3, in some respect, was going to happen. Like, we were going to get, like, the value of us was going to be seen sometime, hopefully in our lifetime.
I remember. So
and we played it accordingly.
Yeah, to give people some. Yeah, right. I've seen it long enough to be like, I'm never selling my work until it's official and there is like kind of a royalty structure or some sort of like history to it, because the whole rights thing has been so sketchy and weird.
I've licensed my work a lot, but I've
always
never sold
known like just hold the right.
I've kept my own. I can do
even
anything
now,
I want with my imagery because I knew that was going to be more valuable than anything else in the long run.
Even now, right? Yeah. Which is artists talking about CCO, and I don't know how serious any of it really is legally. Just say it on Twitter.
It's like, I'm just like,
don't give away your rights. What are you doing?
Yes, I'm going to be blunt right now.
There's
and
no
a little
reason.
bit maybe more forthcoming than I should be, but like, I find that conversation within the space just so silly. It's just like so dumb. I'm like, this is a conversation decades ago. Like, I'm already over this.
100%.
Like, I did a report on this when I graduated college, bro. Like, it's
that's what I said earlier.
Like, it's not an issue for artists, man. That's not what we're talking about. If you're talking about your collectibles and fucking whatever that Seth Green guy is making a TV show because he has rights of his Bored Ape, that's something else. Nobody gives a shit. That's some, like, the industry people might talk about that. But for artists, never sell your fucking rights. This isn't a conversation. Like, we use copyright as a point of departure of conversation in the art world, not as a dialogue of like, who owns the right to an image? Get the fuck out of here. That's crazy.
Exactly. It's all stupid. And it's like, it's just going to happen. I mean, this is what I've already learned because we've been in this world for long enough. Doesn't matter. Like, you know how many lawsuits I've actually gone to court about like anything?
Right.
None. Because
Hardly
it never happens.
any.
You know how many contracts I signed where like, there was like, you broke a contract or this contract said this and blah, blah. It's like, that's what I tell my students. Like, contracts are as good as like, how far you're willing to go with it in court and like, and like you're gonna get a lot of paperwork.
How much effort and attention do you want to put into it? Like,
just get
you really
fucking paid and like, make sure
you have to think about it the opposite way too. I always tell people too, like, when you're signing contracts, like, it might feel intense, but sometimes think, are they really gonna, like, is it gonna be worth it for them to come after you for this? If you like, like, and also these things are written in such ways that you can bend them in any way you want. It's all bullshit. It's all fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and if it becomes a really big legal case, like, that's just free publicity for your art.
Better for you. That's what I always said, man. I was trying at one point in my career, early Tumblr days, honestly. Early Tumblr days, I found it to be very compelling, the idea of using brand names and like calling people out and being like, fucking sue me. Give me a CCO, or like, give me the cease and desist. I mean, dude, like, I will mint at this point a cease and desist. That's amazing.
If you study art history, it's like,
publicize it, please.
Breaking the law is one of the best moves an artist can make. I mean,
exactly. So, anyways, not to go out on that.
But I don't even know what I was talking about before. But
we were talking about the NFT scene being like a reward almost for.
And now it's like the royalties thing. It's like, of course, if you're not like engage with the collectors and like it's still about real people, and there's always a way around things, but it's always been that way. But it's like, this is the best of all worst possible options, honestly. Going back to your original thing, I do like, I care more about like humanity advancing and like great art being made and like peace and freedom and love, and this space is providing that. I think it is making the world a better place. I really do. I think it's encouraging people to be creative.
I dig that.
It's fun. Personally too, like the whole like COVID, Trump America, like, it's an escape for me of like positivity and creative exploration, and it's just good. Like,
and that's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
You're looking for good. You're not looking for the violent TV shows.
As an educator now, I see it too. It's like this. We didn't talk about this, but the dark thing. All life is suffering. That's kind of where I start from. I really see that. Maybe I'm like very empathetic or something, but like, just see a lot of pain. Yeah, and it's true. To me, it's true. Like, the baseline is, and I like having a kid or just seeing it in children. It's like, we're not okay. Just generally, like, life is about trying to make it okay.
We're not okay.
Most people are just not like, okay, right? It's like life is confusing and difficult, and like, I think
Well, to put it
maturity
lightly.
is trying to like understand how to be at peace with yourself and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So if that's where we
I
start,
heard something recently,
yeah,
and it was actually a TV show that said like, the world is constantly in free fall. It's in constant free fall where anything at any moment, everything could go completely fucking bonkers. Nobody has any control. But we all just agree, to say it's really not because we can't really handle that. But I think it's really, advantageous to just get comfortable with that. I agree with that sentiment 100%.
yeah, that's where I mean, I think a lot of artists are like this, but it's like, yeah, we're all gonna die. Like just that alone is like,
Well, there's our existentialism.
yeah. If you're not thinking about that on a daily basis, you're kind of projecting like some part of the reality of your existence. And like if so, but beyond that, there's just like somebody's hungry down the street from you right now. Somebody
Yeah.
is needs enough money to pay rent. Somebody's back hurts. Like just
Insane.
shit that sucks. So, and being an educator, part of your job is to sort of like set the tone for classrooms and like get young people to feel a certain way about themselves. And I've sort of like evolved in this person where it's like good vibes are really powerful. And there's not enough people, or I'm not like we already talked about, I'm not a happy-go-lucky guy, but it's like there's enough. I don't know, like just like it's everyone.
Well, it makes it even better that you're not a happy-go-lucky guy, that you put the effort in to be positive.
But also, I don't know what it is, but
because that's me too.
Instagram depresses me, and it's like it is the same as Twitter, I guess, but there's something different about it.
Sure.
And I think part of it is like maybe because that's the way I felt in that Web 2 space or Vimeo too. Is like there's a bit of a competitive aspect to it, and it's a like and follower thing, and versus
the reward structure of it was all sideways. I've said that a million times.
It wouldn't happen on Instagram, probably between us.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't.
Something.
I'm going to ask just a very direct question then about your history and it relating then to the NFTs and I'm gonna like real part of the like real NFT question about collectors, I guess, is that you're doing very well on super rare, it seems like, or it looks like you do very well on super rare, much deserved, honestly, because you said yourself, you put a year into some of these pieces. That's crazy, like all deserving. But it's a topic within this space and it's something I find interesting. Like, how do you get collectors to understand the value of the richness of an artwork and your history as a person that's been doing this for a decade within this space? Like, because so many collectors just see like, oh, you were one of the first NFT artists to mint. It doesn't necessarily mean you've been around like that. Like, just because you were one of the first to mint, but that means nothing to me. I mean, it probably means nothing to you, but to some collectors, it means fucking everything. It doesn't matter if that thing was just like a sketch on an iPad. Like I can't imagine that in 40 years. I'm just projecting that a iPad sketch is going to be very valuable, right? But how do you get a collector to understand something like this, where it's like, yo, here's value actually built into the piece, you see? Like, you get this? Because it seems to be a real issue.
I'm playing with it myself. Well, let me just say this. I'm so open to like playing within this space. And I do think because of the way it behaves, fine art and like good real art is more of a collectible than it's ever been, which is cool. Like,
and it's going to become more and more.
I'm buying art in a way
more accessible.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm buying a lot of art. I'm just saying that I won't hang up. And I wouldn't have done that.
It's becoming more of like a commodity but a commodity that more people can access now.
So I think it's going to change. Yeah. And it's going to be like, there are going to be markets around artist work that is, I think, good. Like we talk about art and money, like it's disgusting. And like you look at the art market now with certain artists and price points, it's all obfuscated and pumped from different places. And you don't know what's going on. I do think there's something kind of cool about it. As an art historian, I can say there is something about being first, even if it sucks, for sure. We see in graffiti art, right? Some of the best, the earliest graffiti artists were literally just tagging their name. It's not like art as we think of it, but it's part of that history and lineage now.
It's historical.
Yeah, so it's got something. And
historical value for sure.
And then there's all the whole thing about outsider art. So I'm kind of fascinated by like, we're going back and collecting art now from like, mental asylums in the late 1800s. That wasn't thought of as having any value when it was made, and now is some of the most valuable American artwork from that period, I can see likely things happening now too, where there's like savants or whatever that means now, whose work is completely overlooked. I'm trying to look for some of that stuff, like shit that's weird and a
Find it
little bit
yourself.
off. I dig that, but it has to be like not purposely off. It's got to be like really outsidery. There's something cool
What do you
about
think of
that.
X Copy?
So loaded. It's so hard for me to like. I just want to say this. I'm very cautious about critiquing like any artist in the space because
Yeah, you know,
I don't want to ever
put you in a
create
bad
beef.
position or anything.
I
like
do
that.
think
I'm not
I'll
trying
say
to put you
this.
on the spot, but like
I think X Copy would acknowledge this if
animation,
they ever
the
talk about it.
faster,
It's a
seemed like
relationship. Yes. X Copy is to Tumblr as I am to Vimeo, and like we had that conversation for real. So we're in similar things. I do think a lot of the value placed on X Copy's work is because they were a pioneer in this crypto art movement, and they onboarded some of the like OG kind of people who made an impact. That's legitimate. If I was buying an X Copy right now for like over 100 ETH, a lot of that value would be that like that story and not that I think the art. Let's say that I think the art is worth that much inherently.
That really grew on me. X Copy is one of those where it's like without Web3 NFT scene, I don't know if it would have really hit for me the way it has hit for me. But I see him as
I can say that for OGs, like
an
I
icon.
think X Copy was legitimate enough artwork that it wasn't like this is all shit. There's a bunch of I always say like Sarah Zucker was one of the earliest artists where I was like, I vibe with what she's doing and get why this space works for her work. And I'm the same way. Like Jen Stark is a friend. Like the artists who have been like physical / digital or like real made technology stuff. I think if you want to talk again, this is like conversations. If you listen to these podcasts, and I'm sick of it. But I do think Fidenzas are really cool. And like if you're gonna like invest in generative art, like Fidenzas are like dope. I really, those are like Fidenzas and X Copies. When I see them sell for those amounts, I'm like, you know, if somebody's going to have that cultural value and be early and like all that stuff, it's like the right ones got picked, I think. But I would say like to each, like just like music, there's art I vibe with and art I don't vibe with. And then there's clearly like what we were saying, like saying something's qualitatively good or bad is like, you know, you never want to do that in art. But there's stuff that's obviously like there's stuff that's like undeniably groundbreaking and important. And I do see the space more and more recognizing it. I'll name drop people like Ruben Wu, like,
but they're also
like
more in this space than ever because it's evident, because it's very in our face and everything. Though, like there is this other dynamic at play where people are seeing a lot of money to be made, so they're making work to get the money, and like that's where I think the danger comes. Where it's
and they're they're collecting. We're going to see waves in our own careers.
So we do need this level of curation where we can't just be like, there's no such thing as good or bad art, because that just leaves the fucking room for somebody to be like, I'm an artist now because you can make money, blah 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 blah. There it is, you know, like, and that I feel like we need. I don't like gatekeepers, but we need some sort of general consensus of like looking at the artist and being like, okay, like you're legitimate, at least, like you have, you know, a history of being an artist, and you've paid your dues, I guess, even though I don't really believe in that, even, you know, that pay your dues bullshit, but like, you know what I mean? Like there needs to be some level of
and you do need to watch yourself. Let me say this.
Well,
whenever I feel that way, I always just, I don't, it's like, that's to me leading into like jealous. I literally don't, I care about other artists, but like the comparison in my head or like who deserves it or doesn't is not, it's more of like who I'm interested in. I follow them, and like if I don't, you don't interest me, I don't follow you.
Deserving is such a shitty word.
Yeah,
I hate the word
deserving. But if you think about art history, that's what I always. But you tell, if you go in a museum with anybody but young people, and you say like, why is this the stuff that's here? Why this stuff? Why not something else?
Yeah.
And often when we're talking about modern and contemporary art, where we're like in the era of like an independent artist with a voice, which is still a relatively new thing in human culture. Why are these the ones that are considered value? And like, it's not really about price ultimately or the collector. It's about other artists and about the artists that came after them. So who we're going to be judged by, Jesse, is like the next generation. Some of them are maybe in the space already, but not really. And it's like, are they going to be ripping off X Copy or me or you?
Both.
Right? And then who are they going to want to see? Who's going to like, and
there's going to be a X Copy Jake Fried blend, you know, in the next 5 years.
I could say, will never be a me again. exactly.
Well, of course, but there will be like, you know,
But I'm just saying, like, when people are like,
you know,
do you like Warhol's work? It's like, I can't even answer that question, but it's like so undeniably has influenced the last 40, 50 years of history that like, I think he deserves to be
well, it would be
canonized.
like
Like, period.
denying a part
Yeah,
of history almost.
yeah,
Like, do you like Andy Warhol's work? It's like,
doesn't matter.
like, is there such thing as a chair? You know, or,
Yeah.
you know, something as dumb as that. You
Would
know,
contemporary art be the same as it is without him existing? No. So I can't even like, it's like a butterfly
yeah,
effect thing. So
yeah.
that's the way I feel about my own work too.
But
Is
is it
like,
hanging in my house, or would I put it at hanging in my house? That's a different question.
yeah, me personally,
So
probably
yeah,
not.
yeah, exactly.
Doesn't
Well,
express their value.
that's beautifully put at the end. I love this concept of you know, we're going to be judged by, you know, who the next generation, and what's happening now will be judged by the future, and that, you know, in history our place will be dictated by that more than sales or anything else. So that was a beautiful place to end.
For
I
sure.
really
Like this,
appreciate
yeah.
your time, all of your insights. Were really valuable, like coming out from like an educator in the academic world. I'm not so much in that academia world, so it's really nice to get that point of view, especially for our listeners too, you know, like, so really appreciate it. It's been really
Thank
a
you so
pleasure
much.
getting to know you. I hope to continue this conversation offline, and continued success in everything you do. If you'd like to promote anything at this point, or give a shout out, or if you just want to say follow me at Jake Fried, whatever you'd like, go ahead.
Great. Well, I'll say like congrats on FakeWhale, and I'll definitely stay in touch. And I'm interested to see what you guys are building. And what can I promote? I have go to Jake J Fried, JAKEJFRIED at Twitter. That's the best place to follow me regarding everything we talked about here. And you can find my links. We didn't get into it, but I just did a fake rare Pepe. So like kind of think about memes versus art, and like collectible kind of cards versus art, and that was interesting.
That's very
Sold
cool,
out
man.
right away, 100 of them. So like there's something
Of
there.
course.
I just did a proof Grail, which is this whole project with the
I
proof
saw that.
system where
Very
they
cool.
don't reveal the artist, and it's all this gamified stuff. So there's a new edition. Again, it's already kind of expensive. Super rare. You
And
can
who does
find my
proof
stuff.
again? Kevin something?
Kevin Rose. Yeah, and Kevin
Yep.
mentioned
Shout
one
out
of
Kevin Rose.
my Grail. Yeah, Kevin's a
Very
collector
cool.
now. Feel very good about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't need to promote them any more than they already get, but like Proof is doing good
Ha.
things, and they're doing it well, and they're legit. That's why I worked with them. Super rare, you can see super rare in my kind of career is like where my top kind of pieces are, top prices. And then I sold a piece at Christie's in June for psychedelic charity auction,
Oh,
which is on my own manifold contract. So it's not on secondary, but it's like you can find that.
that's really cool. Cool.
I just posted it the other
Christie's,
day.
huh?
If you go on my Twitter, it was the one that was in Times Square, and then they had it in the Christie's gallery, and that's
Cool.
owned by Ryan
Very
Zurer,
nice.
who's a good collector.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I have the Night Vision series is my like most accessible collection. This is one of the pieces behind me of it. I'm actually just shipped out some prints to collectors yesterday, which is a whole other element to this. But that's where I took one of my Super Genesis pieces with my collector. We broke it up into every individual image from the piece is its own NFT with a title and rarities. And just to show you, talking about the speed of my work, to me, every frame is the work too. So in a sense, the films are just like as tightly packed of the process, the evidence as there can be. But
you can do a print of every frame.
You can still get a Night Vision under 1 ETH right now, so you can check that out. And then I have my Genesis drop and some other editions, but it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But it's actually not.
Yeah, you're a busy man. And you did something on FX Hash or no? Did I see something?
No,
or no?
That's a whole other conversation. No Tez, no Sol. I've been ETH only, except my fake rare was on XCP, which is the Bitcoin thing. And I'm interested in that the Pepes are pre like Ethereum NFT
Man,
culture.
that's cool.
There's
Honestly,
cool.
If
you're not into that,
the rare Pepe thing is pretty cool.
There is a cool. That's like
cool, man.
It's
congrats.
Let's finish this conversation. It's like if we were on the Tumblr Vimeo side of the art kind of subculture, that Pepe thing is like the collector base crypto subculture before it went mainstream like we're in now. And I'm learning a lot from it. And actually it's helping me understand, because I'm not in like, do not deny the way collectors are interacting with your work. And that a lot of it is the chats. The memes, and not that it's cheapening the work. It's like that's how we communicate about the art in our lives. And the GM.
That's really
right?
well
Like,
put. I love that. Yeah. No, I love that. I GM all the time. I love, I
love the
love
GM.
even that's an esoteric thing, right? Really. I mean, from people, if I'm not looking outside, they're like, what the fuck? All these GMs, people don't even know what that means. I started putting it on Instagram just because I don't give a shit. Like, GMs everywhere, man. Fucking good morning. Like, that's great. Like, I love it. Like, whatever. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting. Like, I do have difficulty coming around to like meme culture. I've always been on like the edge of like,
Me too.
I will use all the internet. I will use it to its maximum extent as much as I can. I will use it up, every tool possible. But when it comes to like becoming a meme and engaging with like the goofier side, I guess, of the internet, I've had a harder time coming around to it. But now seeing it evolve into the actual language really of all of this is memes are language. Memes are, I'm beginning to accept it and understand it at least, and seeing how I may use it, etc. So
Yeah, I saw it in the
it's
experimental animation community where like it's such a subculture when people would make like a joke about peg bar or certain software or something in a meme format. Like it's like it's not just funny, it's like I feel loved. Like
it hits.
I'm part of that. I
Yeah.
get it. This gets me.
Yeah.
And it's deep.
Well, because it puts them on the viewer, it involves you in a way or something. It's
Yeah.
like an inside joke or something. Yeah, it's
And
powerful. It's powerful messaging.
we could talk for a long time. I could just I'm gonna
Yeah, we
leave.
really could. Yeah,
But
we'll have to do a follow
the
up. I would
meme
say
thing,
let's keep going for a while, but they cut us off after a certain amount of time.
let
So
me just say with the Pepe thing that I've seen recently, which is really kind of cool to watch, is that it takes some of the pressure off of like everyone feeling serious about the art or having to respect my vision. So like if they respect the art, but because it's a Pepe, it's like, oh, I can talk to Jake and like have kind of not feel like I'm being sacrilegious or
it
something.
like
And
opened you up a little
yeah,
bit,
it
made
makes
you
it more accessible and it lets them come in. And then they discover my other work and it like leads to that conversation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
You have a really good outlook on this. So like, I think it's refreshing, honestly. This has been a really nice conversation, really refreshing. You've shed a lot of light in areas that I needed illuminated even a little myself. So I really appreciate everything, man. Everybody check out Jake Fried on Twitter. It's the best place probably, and you can get everywhere from there. So until next time, cheers.
Thanks,
Peace out,
man.
everybody.